All right, so part two, local politics 101 and the 918 by Dr. McNeil. Now, this is going to be a brief synopsis, thinking from big all the way to small. Big meaning the state government, all the way into what we can do on a daily basis. So, biggest thing to notice here is this is the only graphic I can find with everybody on one page. But in this case, John O'Connor is actually the new Attorney General, different from 2020. Let's focus on us. So, senators, there's going to be 48 of them, and then two are going to go on to represent our U.S. Senate. So, this is important just thinking in terms of I want you to look at the map and I want you to think about where these zones are going to intersect in terms of all these numbers. Okay. The state representatives have done us a little bit of a favor in actually seeing how the numbers themselves correspond to certain curvature of the districts, but 101 of these, and then from the U.S. Senate, or excuse me, U.S. representatives, we're going to have 5 that represent our state. So all based on population. Once again, let's focus on the little people. You may have two different conflicting lifestyles or rural versus urban that are both represented by the same person or different people in the same area. And so think about this as we dive deeper, moving on down. So we're going to take the whole state and condense it into one specific area. This is also important in the political process as we want to have a very targeted approach to what we do, why we do it, and what is the outcome. Tulsa is going to be the county, state level, 77 counties, and Tulsa is the one that we're going to focus on first. As we look at Tulsa and we think about the surrounding areas, it's cool to think about the history. So Osage, Pawnee, Creek are going to all be major Native American tribes. Creek specifically is going to take ownership of Tulsa and Okmulgee as their roots and as their names. So Tulsa, originally meaning old home, is reference to another word, Tallahassee, I believe. I don't quote me on how to say it. But as far as what it represented, it was a home that the Creek originally had in Alabama. And if you think of the relocation and the events of the Trail of Tears, it's important to understand how this history influences our policy today and just movement in general. Okmulgee, on the other hand, was named after, once again, the Creek Nation, but it was named after a creek, and the creek represented boiling water, and there's a deeper story there that I think you'd have to be there to understand. The other aspect of this is going to be one of the districts one of the counties that's not represented. Up top is going to be Washington, named after the president. Rogers, a prominent Native American family. And then Wagner is going to be the railroad track, that existed in that county. As we dig deeper into Tulsa specifically, you're going to notice these 3 different partitions. And so those are going to be how and who fixes the roads as well as public safety. That's going to be the role of county commissioners, which is another elected official in our state. And each of these counties is going to have different municipalities or cities. So the cities are going to each have a mayor and city council, which also help and figure out what are the greater needs of these areas. So when we think of the police department, when we think of the fire department, and kind of an interesting note for my job, EMS is different by city. Okay, so all of these different ways and how these entities are paid and compensated are going to affect how we're able to deliver certain aspects of care. But once again, these are individuals, and all these individuals have different agendas, different plans, different ways that they have to meet the needs of the families and the community around them. So important to think about what's even deeper than the municipality. And that's our districts. So different than Friday Night Lights, even with this, there's even further minutia that we have to get into. So with each district, we have different zones. And the zone that's important to us on February 8th will be mine as we figure out who takes the new helm as a school board representative. But more importantly, what is education, what values are we holding, and who needs to be represented in this next vote as we move forward and making sure that everyone has a chance to see it at the table. So taking things to the next level beyond that, it's all about our neighbors. It's about our individual kids. A chain is only as strong as its weakest link. So when we have to think about education, we also have to think about the achievement gap. We have to think about which one of these dots is struggling. And I love the district so much because with a focus as 100% career and college readiness, every single one of these dots makes a difference in what we do, the decisions that we make, and the politics that we play. So very important thinking forward. And what does that look like in terms of how the demographics spread as well? If you need to learn more about your election candidates on the 8th, one great way is to follow us on social media, get into the schools and ask what the actual needs are and how they're being met by us. But at the same time, be able to come to the school board meeting. Come on the 18th at 7 p.m. and then listen to the interactions that happen. Definitely vote on the 8th. And if you need to learn a little bit more, go back to that campaign video I mentioned in the first video and being able to watch this summary in 3 minutes. So running for PTA is going to be another big thing that comes up as we need involvement in our kids' education from the earliest ages all the way until they get into post-secondary school, local committees for bonds that have to be passed and how tax dollars are spent, and of course, iron sharpens iron. So come on and be able to run for the school board as well. References, of course, we're going to jump into this deeper, but there's so much information I want to be able to disseminate to empower the next group of leaders. And here's some excellent websites to do so, depending on whatever your flavor is, but it's out there, it's free, and it's important for us to be a part of this process. Thanks. Let's get started. See you at the polls on the 8th.